Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Jay, and this is Homeschool Your Kids podcast. Today we have with us Gemma. Gemma, introduce yourself.
Hi, Jay. Thanks so much for having me on today. My name's Gemma Sharp. I'm an emotional and positive intelligence coach. I live on a small island called the Isle of Man. I came here about 24 years ago now. I'm Australian originally and came over here just for 9 months in order to travel around Europe. And 24 years later, I'm still here with two kids. And as I said, I'm an emotional and positive intelligence coach, and I guide parents and children that have anxiety, that have a lot of some neurodivergent, through the process of discovering their inner strengths and increasing their emotional intelligence, so we can lay a really good foundation to raise emotionally intelligent adults that are strong and confident and are able to deal with all of life's challenges in as positive way as possible.
Nice, nice. Why did you find that as a focus? What landed you at that?
Well, I actually was in the corporate space for many years. And then I had, as I said, my two kids. My son is 15 now, and he was a very easy baby, super easy. He slept through the night. He hit all of his milestones. He was, a very easy child. And then I was one of those smug parents that when other parents turned around and said, "Isn't parenting hard?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, not really." Super easy when you've got a great kid. And then a couple of years later, I had my daughter, who is the most amazing human being. But then she brought me down a peg or two, which I needed to be fair. She showed me exactly what it was like to parent a child who wasn't neurotypical. It turns out that she is ADHD, ASD, and she's dyslexic, and she is fantastic. But when she was little, she was hard work. And don't get me wrong, she's still hard work now. I'll be honest. I love her dearly, but she sucks the life out of me on a daily basis. But she struggled a lot as a baby with she had silent reflux. She then started to develop these very highly sensitive reactions to things like clothes and smells and change and anything really. And I was a bit of a rubbish mother, to be honest, in the beginning. I parented her the way my parents parented me, which was very hard line, extremely strict. You do as you're told, and that is it. And what I realized was I was increasing her struggles with the way I was parenting. And it got to the stage where at the age of 7, she was really, really struggling. I was really struggling. The whole family unit was really struggling. I won't lie, I wanted to jump on a plane to Australia, one-way ticket, and go, okay, I've done 7 years, I'm sort of done now, thanks. But because she was literally on the edge, she kept saying to me, I don't want to be here anymore. She was saying things that no parent wants their child to say to them. And it was at that moment where I had this realization that something needs to be done. And so I went to our doctors and I said, look, I think that we're struggling so much at the moment. We really need some help. And what I found was there was no help, which was really upsetting. But it was a bit of a wake-up call for me that in actual fact, okay, they decided to put her on the list to do some tests and to see if she was neurodivergent in any way. And it was then that I realized that it was going to take at least 3 years for this diagnosis to happen. And in the meantime, I had to do something myself. So I started looking into anxiety, because she had been diagnosed with anxiety before. There was a few different things that she was having: stomach aches, headaches all of the time. And I took her to the pediatrician, and for 6 months, she was under the pediatrician. They were doing different tests, and they said, we can't find anything wrong with her physically at all. What we think it is anxiety. And so I had that as a foundation to sort of realize that she had anxiety. And knowing that the other tests were going to take quite a long time, I jumped into finding out as much as I could on anxiety, how it shows up in children, how it shows up in adults, the different ways that it affects their behavior. And what I found was that she was extremely anxious about things, and I was looking at all of her behavior as bad behavior rather than her not being able to cope with things. And I parented her around that bad behavior in for her, an extremely destructive way. And that was a really big wake-up call for me, that actually I have not been the best parent for my child. And that's a horrible realization to have, that actually, as a mum for my daughter, I was failing her. But I didn't know that. I didn't know any other way. I was doing what I thought was best. And so I started then to, as I said, research more about anxiety, how it showed up in the body, how to help my daughter, and what I needed to do to help her. And what I found was actually I needed to change. It was all very well, helping her, but in order to help her, I had to work on myself first. So that was a big wake-up call for me in those moments, I have to say.
Indeed. Our kids always bring out the light in ourselves, like, oh, I need to work on that. Not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know trying to control someone else is out of the question. Like I tell my girls all the time, you can't control anyone else. You can only control yourself. So you have to control how you react to others. And that takes you working on yourself, because a lot of things you haven't been introduced to. We get spoiled with that first child. Think that's God's way of tricking us to have it more. It's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Absolutely.
Look at this beauty. Then you get that second child, and it's like, yo, what in the world? What happened? Why are you like that? Yeah, no, it's all great, because they do. They challenge you to grow. They cause you to grow in different ways. So I could just imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, like I said before, I parented the way my parents parented me, which was, they were extremely old school. And it was, you sit, you do as you're told, you never answer back, you don't show those big emotions unless it's happiness. You don't get angry, you don't stamp your feet. That is not allowed in our house at all. And I started to obviously to parent them the same way. And what I realized was, jeepers, just how much baggage I was carrying myself because of the way I was parented in that way. I felt so uncomfortable with those big emotions. So when my daughter got angry, I couldn't cope with it. It triggered me so much. And it's funny that, like you say, actually seeing yourself and realizing that you are the only one that you can control, that was a massive wake-up call for me, because I tried to control her. I tried to control her behavior. And when it didn't happen, what was I going to do? There was the frustration, the anger that I felt was immense. And it took a lot of self-reflection, a lot of forgiveness, really, to myself, to let go of some of that guilt, and forgiving myself for not knowing any better. And then being able to show myself that compassion that enabled me then to start working on myself and improving myself more, that then made me model that behavior that I wanted my child to display, doing it through me rather than doing it through controlling her. And that took a lot of work, and I'm still working
Yes.
on it every day when she triggers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I tell you, that little voice in your head. I tell people, like, people be like, "Oh, I don't talk to myself." I'm like, "What? You don't talk?" I talk to myself every day. I
Yeah.
coach myself through all of these lovely situations, these tests, these triggers, these everything. Like, it is a lot of work. It is. And it's continuous. It's not a, a easy, like, "Oh, I got you now. I got you figured out." No, because they keep growing. They get, they get to different stages. So I can just imagine. You said she was 13. She's 13
She's
now.
13 in July. Yes. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So yeah, teenage
Mhm.
years, like, that's a whole nother ball game. So then you got to
Yeah.
grow and adjust to that. So
Yes.
the work is never done.
It isn't. And I mean, that's another thing about she doesn't like change. And I know
Mm,
lots of people don't like, most of us don't like change, to be fair, but she finds change extreme. And if a lot of neurodivergent children do. And what I didn't realize was that not only is there change every day in normal life, but I didn't realize just how much she would be triggered by the change in her body as she started
aw,
to go into puberty and into the teen years. And that was another massive thing for me, that I suddenly thought, she resists change on every level. And
mm,
actually, when now that she's starting to see her body change, her hormones change, she again is resisting it. She keeps saying, I
mm.
don't want this to happen. I don't want to grow up. I don't want. And
Aw.
it really is, like, every day is a new challenge, a new trigger, and a new way of learning how to help her cope, and how to cope myself with her big emotions.
Mhm.
It's a constant learning thing. I never realized just how much, when we decide to have children or to have families, I didn't look beyond the baby and
Right?
think, I was like, yes, I want a family and a baby, and it's going to be amazing. And that's all I saw. I didn't think about years later and
That they
the
grow and they
struggles.
start
Oh,
talking and
man. Yeah.
opinions. And what you spoke on earlier, like, as far as our parents, older generations go, they were more strict and more, I don't know how to put it. They didn't let you be you. They didn't. Look,
Yes.
me and a friend was just talking about this last night. It's like how we let our children be themselves, and just like how much of an effort that is, because we did come from an era of be quiet, stop talking, stay out the way, stay in a child's place, all that good stuff. We came from a time of that. But it's like now we have these little opinionated, outspoken, just bright lights. Like, they are really bright lights. They are.
Yeah.
And we don't try to dim it.
Yeah.
But that takes work. Like, that takes a lot of conscious effort. That takes a lot of, like I said, the coaching, the talking through, because they do come with so many different things that they're experiencing, and not necessarily knowing how to put it in words all the time. Just big emotions, big personalities, always. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
It
a lot.
is. It's a lot on a daily basis. And the other thing, just something that you said then really spoke to me, that not only do we have to work on ourselves when we are letting them be themselves, but we also have to build this what's the word, this muscle of being okay with letting them be themselves in society, when we know that society actually doesn't want us to
Want
be
you to be yourself.
ourselves.
Yes.
And
Ding, ding,
that's
ding.
another, you have to start putting that sort of Teflon coating on yourself and go, okay, I realize that society is thinking my child should behave in a certain way, and I am not going to necessarily make them do that. I'm going to let them be themselves. And I'm going to then encounter some not great feedback from society and the
Yes,
person
ma'am.
at the we call it Tesco's, but, you know, at Walmart or whatever, who is judging me, and I can feel their eyes boring into me as my child is not conforming in the way that other people think they should. That's really, that's another level, I think, of getting comfortable with yourself and your child in
Yes,
public,
ma'am.
without a
Yes,
doubt.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because I know mine be running amok, honey. I tell you, they be everywhere. I tell people, we go in the grocery store, we literally go in opposite directions, like they're adults or something. Like they go and they sometimes have their own cart. They sometimes, like, it just all depends. It all depends.
Yeah.
But like, we are definitely very, very different. And we pride ourselves on being very, very different. I'm not trying to get them to conform. It never was easy for me to conform. And so I revel in the fact that we are living in a time of freedom for them, like how free they are to be them. I really adore and I love it.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of work.
Yeah. That's when we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there is some way uncomfortable stuff going on in those moments. I went into town with my husband and my daughter, and my husband met his old boss, who's a very elderly gentleman, really lovely guy. But Mia was there with me, and he turned around and my husband introduced Mia to him, and he was very old-fashioned. He took her hand and he kissed the back of her hand. And she didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was like, whoa, okay. That was way too much contact for her. And he turned around and he said, was that okay that I did that? And she said, no, it wasn't. And in that moment, I reverted back in my head to my parents, who would have told me to be polite. You don't say that. And the sort of internal battle that I had of being embarrassed and wanting to diffuse the situation, but actually thinking, no, she needs to turn around and say, actually, that was not okay for me.
Yes.
And stand up for herself in that moment, and me be okay with her doing that. And enduring that uncomfortableness that was going on between everybody, because he didn't know what to do. And bless him, he's an older gentleman that probably, 80 years ago, or in his day, that was okay to do. But for her, that was not okay for her. And she didn't play on it anymore. She just said, actually, no, that wasn't okay. And he apologized, and we carried on the conversation. But I literally wanted the ground to open me up and just swallow me up in that moment, because I was like, this is too much for me right now. But getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is something that we have to do as parents if we want to raise unstoppable adults that are able to say what is okay and what isn't okay for them. And I'm so proud of her for doing that. Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm just thinking, like, in picturing, thinking about being, how old was she at that time?
Oh, this was only last year. So she may be 11.
Oh, yeah. No, ew, no. An older man coming and kissing my hand at 11. Yeah, no, I would have been really grossed out. And so I'm glad that she was able to voice and be like, yeah, no, that wasn't cool. Please reconsider that whenever you approach another young lady or, a little girl. Don't do that again. Don't do that again.
Yeah, he did need to learn in that situation. That was really good. But it was a learning situation for all of us. And it sort of showed me too just how much as parents often we not only don't let our kids be themselves, but if that had been me and she was watching on, I would have just accepted it. I would have just said, oh, it's fine, because I wouldn't have wanted to cause any uncomfortableness. And yet that would not have really have been showing my daughter as well how to stand up for herself in situations that actually, no, it's not right. And it's okay to say it's not right. Yes. You do it in a respectful way, and you should stand up for yourself and say it's okay for you to do that. And I think that's where a lot of the time, when we're raising children, children are so intuitive, and they have a very strong intuition inside of themselves. And yet, as parents, or as we are growing up, we're told not to use our intuition very much. We are told, when we tell a child, for example, like when I'm teaching on my course, when I'm teaching children and parents how to be okay with those emotions, so much of the time when we see our child going into these difficult emotions that make us uncomfortable, we don't want to see our child sad or angry or upset in any way. And so a lot of the time, and I did this all the time until I did a lot of research and came to this realization that I wasn't helping the situation by trying to change that emotion within her. So when she was feeling upset and angry, I'd go, oh, babe, don't worry. Don't feel like that. Think of it like this, and change that emotion. And really what I was doing is wiring her not to trust herself, what her body and what her feelings are telling her. And we all do that as parents. We all have these emotional holes that our children go into. And when we see them in this hole, we stick our hand in and try and pull them out of that hole, pop them in a different one that makes us feel a lot more comfortable. Like, let's be happy. Let's be okay. Let's
smile now.
Yeah, exactly. And yet that actually is wiring them to distrust themselves, because they're like, but I'm feeling this emotion, and my parent is scared of this emotion. So this emotion must really not be good, because they're trying to put me in a different, emotion or feeling. And so they get uncomfortable with that emotion, and we're perpetuating that, when really what I've really tried to learn myself is to jump into that emotion with them, jump into that hole and go, you're really angry at the moment. I can see that you're angry, or you're really upset. You're really frustrated. I get it that you're frustrated over this. And I'm not scared of that emotion. So I will sit here with you and be with that emotion with you until it passes. And that has been, for me, an absolute game changer. Instead of turning around and saying to her, oh, I don't know, don't be screaming and shouting and carrying on. You go to your room and you sit there and think about your behavior, whatever it might be. Actually doing that to a child and leaving them alone in that emotion causes so much heartache and problem for them. Instead of us going, I can see you're really angry at the moment, and I will stay with you until you feel a bit more comfortable. That literally has changed things in our house completely. And the speed in which she is then able to move on from that emotion is within sort of seconds, really, because she feels validated, she feels seen. It's okay to have that emotion. Okay, the action might not be okay, like we don't want to lob stuff around the room and that sort of thing, but having someone there while I'm feeling all of these feelings is okay. And it's keeping them in tune with their emotions, and they're going to be so much more intuitive as they get older. When they get into their teen years, if they know that it's okay to feel this feeling, and my feelings are mine and they are right. I heard an example of this which really, really sort of hit home to me, that in years to come, if we have taught them that these emotions are okay, and for them to tune into them, when they get older and say they're out with their friends and maybe their friends have been drinking, and then one of them turns around and says, hey, let me drive you home. And they go, oh, this feels really uncomfortable. This is not right. I don't want to get in the car. But actually, I'm always taught that my feelings aren't right and I should change them. So maybe I should just be happy about this and be okay with it and go with this person and do what they're asking, even though I can see the potential danger. Whereas if we've made it so that they know their feelings are okay and they should tune into them and be more intuitive with their emotions. They can go, this does not feel right, and it's okay that this does not feel right. And I don't have to go and get in that car because I think that's a bit dangerous.
Yes.
So that was a huge thing for me. And every time, not every time, okay, I'm being a little bit top there, but when my child is when she's showing these big emotions, if I remember, I think to myself, is this going to impact her later on if I start trying to change her behavior now in this moment? Or am I better to sit with it and then discuss it with her when she has calmed down, or whatever it might be? But actually helping our kids tune in to their emotions and their intuition is, I think, a game changer for particularly when they start to be out on their own and have to make their own decisions and things.
Indeed, indeed. A lot of parents have a hard time dealing with, like you said, those big emotions, especially crying. You know, your child's crying. It's like, oh, how can I fix this? What do I need to do? I let them cry. I do. I hug them. I try to put, my energy on them type of deal. And so I rub their back and things like that. And I will tell you, my 10-year-old tells me all the time, thank you. Thank you. Because Daddy doesn't let us cry.
Yes.
Yeah, Daddy doesn't let us cry.
Yeah.
And it's not him like telling them stop. Like it's him panicking, like, oh my gosh, you're crying. What do I do? What do I do? Why are you crying? Stop.
Yeah.
What do you need? Candy? What do you like?
Yeah.
Trying to fix it quickly. Me, I'm
Yeah. What's
go
going to make
ahead
it
and
better?
feel it, feel all of
Yeah.
that. Feel
Yeah.
it. Morgan got upset with me a couple weeks ago, my 7-year-old. She had wanted to play a game, but she had set up the game and everything. And this is before I had to do a recording. So I'm thinking, because we write affirmations in the morning, and this has been something we've been doing for a little bit. So I'm thinking that while I'm in the meeting, she's going to do these affirmations, and then after the meeting, we're going to play the game. She didn't have that memo. She thought we were going straight to the game. She sat around and did nothing while I was in the meeting. And so when the meeting was over, I'm like, hey, okay, you did your affirmations? And she's like, no, I thought we were going to play a game. And I said, no, after you do your affirmations. And she got so upset. She's like, I thought we were going to play a game. And when she was reacting, getting angry and stuff, I told her, why don't you go take, because we were out at my parents and they have a little lake and stuff in their backyard. I said, why don't you take a walk to the lake and cool down? Like, mistake, big mistake. How you just said, like, don't send them away. Don't let them deal with their emotions by themselves. I learned. She walked down and it escalated. She, by the time she hit like midway in the grass, she's sitting down and she's boo-hooing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I thought this was gonna help. But we had to talk through all of that afterwards. Like, and she's like, I just didn't want to be by myself. And I was like, well, wasn't like I was just trying to give you time and space to get yourself back centered. Like, just having a conversations, whatever. But the sending them off to deal with it by themselves, not so much.
I mean, sometimes it works. Sometimes they do need space. Sometimes actually, like I often say to my daughter, I was listening to Mel Robbins, who I love, and she said something, the 3 questions, which as my daughter is growing and my son as well, this is something that I'm using with them, is to ask the 3 questions in this moment when they've got these big emotions or they've come home and they're wanting to tell you something. Say, right, first of all, do you need my advice? Do you need me just to listen? Or do you want to tell me and then just be by yourself? And in those moments, asking those 3 questions actually is giving them the ability to increase their emotional intelligence, because they're going, well, what do I want in this moment?
Yes.
What do I need in this moment? And in actual fact, it's then helping us as parents, because if they turn around and say, I just want you to listen, phew, I don't have to sit here and try and think of how to fix this problem. I can just go, woohoo, great.
I got you.
You just want me to listen. I'm all ears. Tell me. Or if they turn around and say, actually, I do want your advice. Okay, great. Well, then I know what I need to do. And if you want to tell me and then just go and be by yourself, that's fine as well. But it's a two-way street that actually really helps both of you, because it's making your child think about what they need in that moment.
Yes.
And it's also giving you guidance on what they want from you. And this is brilliant in relationships with adults as well.
Yes.
Where, I don't know, we had this situation, sat on a couch, and I was going into work the next day, and I said, I'm really worried about this meeting I've got with my boss. And I'd been worrying about it for a while. And my husband said, you worry too much. You know that he is just going to be fine when you get in there, and you're going to come home and you will think, why did I worry about this? Because it was absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. And in that moment, he hasn't taken away all that anxiety and worry. I don't go, oh, you're so right. Great, thanks. Just sucked all of that out of me. I'm good to go. I'm still sat there going, you're right, still feeling those feelings, but feeling so alone in those feelings. And it's not nice. Whereas if both of you can turn around and use that technique of, oh, I get it. Do you want my advice? Do you want me just to listen? Or do you just want to offload and then keep watching Bridgerton or whatever it is that you're watching on telly, And it does then actually give you both a path that is going to help the other person. I really love those 3 questions. They've helped me a lot, actually, with the kids and my husband.
Yes, like, sir, I didn't ask you for your advice, sir. I just wanted you to listen to me and my worried, okay? Yes. Let me be worried. Yes. You tell me all that other stuff tomorrow. Yeah. But yes, no, yeah. I totally understand. That does help with adult conversations, because a lot of times, we go into a conversation, that's the first thing we're thinking, like, oh, they just need advice. They need a solution. Like, no, I actually just need you to listen. Okay. I just need to release this that I'm feeling right now, and I need to hear it out loud, and that's it. Like, I don't really want to hear your voice all too much. Actually, I prefer if you just nod and smile. I would prefer that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Smile and wave.
Yes. Thank you.
At the moment.
Thank you. So as far as you being, you said emotional and a positive coach, what does that entail?
So emotional intelligence is where we really start to understand how our thoughts actually trigger our emotions, and how then our emotions trigger our reactions. And so understanding that process, that circle is the beginning of everything, because our brains are negatively wired naturally for the negative, to keep us alive, to keep us safe, which is great, but they get overworked, overused, and totally out of context a lot of the time. And when I'm teaching it to children, I'm wanting them to understand that they are in control of their thoughts if they want to be. Now, that takes effort, that takes building a muscle. But if we can teach them that at a young age, of not thinking of your thoughts as facts and truth, and, well, if I'm thinking it, it must be true. No, your brain is just making up stories about what's going on around you in order to make sense of things. And it will make up stories that aren't true. So being aware of that, and then realizing that those thoughts that you have will trigger certain emotions inside of you, which will give you those feelings, which will make you feel a certain way. And then that in turn leads into your reactions. So how do we start to control this? And when the program that I run, when I do it with children, I insist sounds a strong word, but I do insist that the parents do it with them, because we need to learn this so much ourselves. Yes, and when we can learn that ourselves, then we can model the behavior to our children, and it enhances everybody's life. It enhances the whole family unit. So that's the emotional intelligence side. Positive intelligence is actually a different thing that I do with parents. And that is understanding that from the age of up until about 5, we're whole-brained. We use both sides of our brain. And then when our children either go to school or start learning, homeschooling, whichever you do, it's teaching our brain to think very logically and reasonably about things. And that fires up the left-hand part of our brain. And that is what gets used on a daily basis when we are learning to read and write and solve problems and all the rest of it. But what that does is, in that left-hand side of our brain is also where all of our internal talk is, where our saboteurs live, these little parts of our brain that we create to help us in different situations. So this is where, the high achiever, the avoider, the hypervigilant, the people pleaser parts of our brain start to be developed and start to talk to us a heck of a lot more. You know how you were talking about that voice in your head, that internal dialogue that's constantly going round. And because of the way we learn, and we're learning all of these different academic things, increasing our IQ, those voices get louder and louder.
Yes, they do.
And what happens, sorry?
I said, yes, they do. Yes.
Yeah. Loud. What happens is we often forget to start using the right-hand side of our brain. And this is where our sage powers are, our intuition, our empathy, our creativity, our action, all of this in the right-hand side of our brain sort of doesn't get worked as much. And that is why the negative voices in our head become so loud a lot of the time. And they try to convince us that they're good, So when I start the positive intelligence course, which is about rewiring our brain, actually firing up the sage powers so that we can tap into those powers of the saboteurs, the little bit that is good about them. It's good to be an achiever. It's good to be vigilant. It's good to, in some ways, please others. But the left-hand side of our brain takes it to extremes. So how do we fire up the right-hand side of our brain in order to deal with situations in a more empathetic way? How do we have that calm, clear focus in order to deal with situations without this internal talk that's telling us we're not good enough and why did we do this? And, the internal negative dialogue that we have so much. And that's the positive intelligence that I do with parents, is how to rewire their brain so that they can parent, not only parent in their relationships, in their work environment with colleagues. They can actually have this calmness, this ability to think more positively rather than straight away going to the negative, and how to see, and this I think is one of the key things, is seeing everything, particularly the negative, as a gift or an opportunity. So this went wrong. That's horrible, that's awful, whatever it might be. How do I turn it into a gift or an opportunity? It might just be the gift of knowledge, of realizing, oh, actually, that's really taught me I never want to do that again, whatever it might be. But how do we come at all of life's challenges in a far more positive way that is going to propel us forward rather than drag us down and make us feel bad about ourselves? So, and I love it. I'm so passionate about both of emotional intelligence and positive intelligence, because when you create this foundation in yourself and in your children, it literally will change everything in your life as you go forward.
How do you go about your lessons? Is this a course that you're giving? Is this a one-on-one session? How does this happen?
Yeah, well, with the emotional intelligence, so I created a program called Mind Wizards, which is a program for children 5 to 11, which teaches them, along with the parent, how to build that emotional intelligence, how to understand their thoughts, manage their big emotions, how to, importantly, understand their circle of control, what they can control and what they can't control, and how actually when we can build that muscle, that reduces our anxiety so much more, because anxiety is all about looking at the future or at the past and worrying about these things. Being more present in the moment and bringing it back to the now and saying, what is wrong right now? 9 times out of 10, there's nothing wrong. But what if there is that 1% that there is something wrong? And we teach them within the program, okay, what could we do in those moments? So it's empowering them on every level. And with that course, Mind Wizards, I run it virtually. It's sold worldwide. So I run it virtually with clients, or they can do it online themselves, where you get a Mind Wizards box with everything you need in it, to all the activities, because I am neurodivergent, I'm sure. My daughter is, obviously. It's to have everything that you need in a box ready to go with all different activities, because I'm a very visual learner. So I love for kids to be able to do tangible activities that is going to help solidify that learning. And then there's access to so you get the box and you get access to all of the online videos, where you sit with your child and you go through their very short sort of 5-minute videos in order to keep children's attention. But it's like a six modules. The first module is all about self-love, why it is so important to love yourself first, and why your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you will ever have. And then we talk about thoughts. The next one is emotions, the circle of control. And then we move into the techniques. How do we build that muscle of being able to calm ourselves down, to think more clearly, to manage those big emotions through all different techniques, so that the children can find a couple of ways that they can practice and build that into their toolbox of things to help them, so that they know that they have the ability inside of themselves to manage different situations, rather than looking to external things to help them cope, which we know can be very detrimental depending on what external choice they make with whatever it might be.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's my Mind Wizards program for children. And then with the positive intelligence, it's very intimate. It's 5 people per pod, as I call it. And we work together. It's actually via an app, and then weekly calls with me for 8 weeks. And that teaches you the foundation of positive intelligence, how to rewire your brain, how to be able to manage different situations in a far more positive way, how to quieten those saboteurs that are constantly running our minds all of the time. So, looking at the programs together, when parents do actually either one, it's equipping them with the skills in order to help their children as well. And it changes all relationships. So they're the two ways that I run the programs, and the success that we're having with them is absolutely phenomenal. The testimonials that I get from customers are like, this is life-changing, and it really is. And the reason I know is because I've done it myself, and I'm continuing to do it myself. I am my biggest guinea pig. If it works for me, I'm like, yeah, somebody else might find this helpful. So it's great. It's work that is never done, but you can see it building and increasing and changing on a daily basis, which is fantastic, especially at my age.
Yes. No, yes, definitely. It's a growth mindset overall, as far as the positive and the negative goes, and being able to view and see positive in all that you go through. So it is definitely a mindset thing. But that is beautiful that you created these programs and you understand the importance of the parents, not just the child, needing this information, because it doesn't serve us well if just the child is learning and then the parent is like, why are you feeling like this? Like, no, don't do, like they're not welcoming in that emotional intelligence because they don't have it themselves.
Exactly. And we're children's teachers. We are, if we can't do that ourselves, I guarantee your child will not be able to do it until they get older, if they decide to go down that route of developing their growth mindset. So much of the time we are, and we know about mirror neurons and how when we are feeling a certain way, our children feel a certain way. When we are, displaying an emotion, our children absorb that emotion. We are our children's biggest teachers. And that is why, a lot of parents will come to me and say, my child has anxiety. Can you help them? And I always say, absolutely. But the first thing we need to do is work on you as well, because I am yet to find a child that has anxiety, that does not have someone in their life that is a predominant figure, that does not have the same or have anxiety in some way. And I know that because I have massive anxiety, or I'm working on it. Social anxiety is my biggest thing. And I know that a lot of the time, particularly in the early years, I was modeling that behavior to my daughter. Unbeknownst to me, I wasn't doing it on purpose, but all of my anxieties actually was being soaked up by her and was influencing her anxiety as well. So working on ourselves first, I think, is the biggest gift that we can give to ourselves and to our children, because when we can model that behavior, it is going to feed through to them so much more easily.
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad you mentioned the modeling, because when you were talking, I was like, yes, modeling. Like, that's what I said in my head. But yes, modeling is like, it's a big thing. I tell parents all the time, like, you may think your child's not watching you. Please understand they are watching you. And so either they're going to be learning all of what to do or what not to do from you. But you're going to be your child's teacher, whether you like it or not. So you might as well hone in on the role and, present your best. But it is more showing than telling, and parents have to understand that. We can't keep telling our kids, oh, you need to learn how to deal with your emotions, and they're looking at you like, but you don't even know how to deal with your emotions. What do you mean? Like, what?
Exactly.
So yes, the modeling is important. Modeling is very important.
They are always watching, like always watching. We see it, sometimes they will come out with phrases that we've used, or and I know I say things and I go, oh my goodness, that's my mother. That's I've absorbed that from her so much. So it's the great thing about it, I think, is that when we start working on ourselves, we are starting to heal generational trauma that is, we're like, it's like a car pileup on a freeway where the generations have been whacking into each other and passing this trauma down. And we're at the front of the queue. And the brilliant thing is that we get to stop that car piling up, all of those cars piling up. We are the ones that actually get to turn around and say, no, I want to change things. And we get to then change things for the next generation and the next generation. But it all starts with us, whether we are okay with doing that or not. And that will depend, the outcome of this. Sounds really strong, but I think I strongly feel this. The outcome of your children and the life they are going to live depends on how much you work on yourself now.
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah, without a doubt. You are the catalyst to changing the next generation and changing the way that your child is going to be able to manage their emotions and deal with all of life's challenges, whether it's in a positive or a negative way.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Parents got to take that ownership. So I know it's a big role. And it's like, like you said, when you think about having a family, think about having children, you're not thinking about all of that stuff. Like, all right. I tell
People
people I
say,
can still
oh, the sleep.
remember when I thought, mhm.
Sorry, love. Sorry, the
Oh,
internet
did
went a
I
bit funny for me
freeze?
then.
Or you froze? Thank you. Oh, okay.
We're back.
Oh, no
Yeah.
worries. Yes, no, I was saying, I remember. Yeah, we're back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little delay. Okay. But no, I was saying that I remember when I stopped, using certain words in front of my 2-year-old, my oldest, when she was 2. We were in Target. Okay, Gemma, real bright Target, real, and I have this lovely 2-year-old in the cart, and she's riding along in the cart, and she's playing with my keys. And then she drops those keys, and then she goes, "Oh shit," really loud in Target. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Well, that was perfect. First of all, how you use that was right on point. But
Yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stop saying that, huh?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
get it. But like,
That's so true.
oh my God,
Uh,
why?
the amount of times that's happened to me. And actually, my daughter now pulls me up on it all the time. I will do something, and I got into a really bad habit of when I did something, especially when I was driving, going, "Oh, you stupid cow." And she
Oh
would
my
turn around to
goodness.
me and go, "Mum, don't say that to yourself." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And you often don't realize, do you know what I mean? Just the
Mm-hmm.
habits that you get into. And she'll often pull me up on things. And that's when you know that actually they are absorbing everything that
Yes.
you're doing. And it makes me so happy when she will pull me up on things, because I go, brilliant. She's seeing that that is not great. I need to be reminded. And, it's solidifying the learning within her as well. So
Yes.
it's all good.
Yes.
We all
Yes.
need
Yes.
reminding.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, it's wild to see how much they are listening at times. It's like, Dad,
Yeah.
like, it's really kind of, it's warming. Like, it's warming. It's fulfilling, because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I thought I was just rambling. I didn't think you were really paying attention, but then you brought it back at the right moment, and you let me know just how much you are paying attention to what I'm saying, and finding value in what I'm saying, because you're taking the time to remember it and put it into practice. So
Yes. Yeah.
this lovely parenting game, Gemma.
No one told me how hard it was going to be. You know, my kids are amazing, but sometimes I wonder whether I would have rethought it if I had have realized
What?
just how freaking hard it would have been. But no one tells you that. They all say to you, "Oh, the sleepless nights. Forget the sleepless nights. The sleepless
Yeah, no, that
nights
was great.
are a
That was
very
great.
short period of
Yes,
time."
yes. No, I'll take those sleepless nights
Yeah, yeah.
anytime over words of them using a bunch of words at me. I would take the sleepless nights. Yes, give me sleepless
Exactly.
nights. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Without a doubt. Not
But
to put
it is
anyone off.
right. I know, no, they're great. They're great. Kids are great. But I appreciate all the work that you're doing to help with not just the younger generation, but our older generations to uh develop the growth mindsets of the way of looking at life in a positive manner, or even just recognizing themselves emotionally and their attitude or their feelings or any of that stuff. All of that matters. It matters so much, so much. And I appreciate the work that you're putting in to ensure that we are gaining that intelligence and we're becoming stronger communicators, because that's how that happens. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for talking to me. I've absolutely loved
Of
it.
course.
And it's sometimes parenting can be a really lonely place to be, on those days where you are feeling like a crap parent, or like it's just so overwhelming. And so, knowing that there are other parents out there that are on the same path, that are messing up as well, but there are ways that we can help each other and help ourselves is so important. Building that really strong community of saying,
Yes.
do you know what? I was a shit parent at the beginning. I really was. And I might have to pay for therapy in years to come with my daughter, but I have,
Exactly. I'll pay
totally
that copay.
changed things. Yeah. And you can as well. We can all join forces together and build this next generation of confident, unstoppable adults. And it all starts with us. But there's ways and things that we can do without, worrying about it. Just let's find ways that work for you as an individual and build that muscle, build that strength, and show our kids and let them show theirs, and watch the next generation be a lot more emotionally intelligent. That's the goal.
I know we're watching it. We're really watching it happen.
Yeah.
I love the talks on the conscious parenting. I love the talks on intentionally, the intentional parents.
Yes.
Just all that is just making, bringing awareness to the fact that we are growing, and as a people, we really are, and that's everywhere. And I love it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Where do we find Mind Wizards and Miss Gemma? Where do we find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram called the Positive Parenting Project. I'm on TikTok under the same name. And my website is actually called gemmasharp.com. And that is where Mind Wizards is. Or Jay, they can reach out. Any of your listeners can reach out to you, and we can put them in touch with the correct program for them if they're wanting to know more about what they can do as a parent to increase their child's emotional intelligence or increase their own through positive intelligence, whichever one.
Nice. Yes. And all the links will be in the description. Before I let you go, can you leave these beautiful parents 3 things that will help them to, I guess, grow in their emotional intelligence? Let's stick with that.
Okay. The first one, I think the biggest one is to give yourself some grace as a parent, to really tap into that you are enough, and that even when we mess up on those days, I really believe that we are doing the very best we can in every single moment with our energy levels, with the pressures that we have going on around us, with our emotions, how we're feeling. We mess up, but we are doing the very best we can. And so giving ourselves that grace and that empathy, I think, is so important. I think the next one is, maybe for me, is stop comparing yourself to everybody else, because comparison, as we know, is the thief of joy. But when we can stop comparing ourselves, then we can start having more empathy for ourselves. And you are the best parent for your child. It doesn't matter that Jen down the road or Karen up the street is smashing it on Instagram, out with her kids every day and everybody's looking happy, and you're sat at home going, well, my life doesn't look like that. Stop comparing yourself to everybody else and just know that you are enough for your child. You are the best parent for your child. And when you can have that empathy for yourself, I think that feeds through. So that's 2 things, I think. And the third one is, it is never too late to start working on yourself so that you can change the trajectory, not just of your life, but of your child's as well. And it takes work, it takes effort, but it is, to me, the most rewarding thing, not just for your children, but for yourself. I mean, I turned 50 last month, and I have never been happier than what I am now, actually, because of the work that I've done on myself. Actually looking at myself and going, man, there's a lot of crap to wade through, but it is so worth it. And so starting with yourself first, I think, is really important. So I hope that resonates with your listeners, and just empowering yourself to be the best person you can, and you can do it.
Of course. Thank you so much for that, Gemma. Those were great. Very, very much needed. I'll stop the comparing and contrasting, especially if you're looking at social media. Please stop that comparing and contrasting, because those families are not like, no, I'm just playing. I don't know their life, but don't worry about their life.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about what they're doing.
Definitely, yes. And the self-work that you are doing, understand that it's not only just healing you, it's healing your future generations and past generations. So take the time to do that work and understand that you don't have to do it alone. Miss Gemma is here to help you. She has a wonderful program that you all can take a look at and do together with you and your little ones. Because this is a journey not to do alone, and understand that the support is available. There are tons and tons and tons of resources, and I'm so happy that I'm able to have a platform to bring those resources to you. So never think that you're alone, and understand there are resources available for all that you can imagine. So if you feel that your social emotional development or your positive thinking is something that you need to, hone in on more and focus on more, then definitely check out some of Gemma's merchandise. But always,
Jay, thank you
always,
so
always.
much. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for
course.
all the work that you do. Thank you for being that beacon of light that we all need. That is so important, and I'm so grateful to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for being you, and thank you for all that you're doing to be the change that we need. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.